Ebuziafo a daily update so enamugu so amotion no message so baswa said de be na no subscribe to your channel na feel like video no share na so comment bia so afabra comment section nim na merepem ne begebre ne akenkan dia ma na honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa na chese wabambo ntia odi nsem bi betudwa concerning anti corruption team President John Dramani Mahama ateno na we no kasa na ochemze omu team no matin nyese omu behwehwe na obia o there be entisa but oni Akroma udi unim se free akofo time so obedi Ghana so sa 8 years ni na besi sa amiri no se unim se scandal bi aba ama udin apiem de ane shase fa unsa guti because baby also mo gada information na just no kure wo mu a omo de begina so edo wa famra kwan so de ane o mai ready intinene omo kasa kura meti say Ken Ofori Atta din pie mu e won sem no meta audio mu Ken Ofori Atta edin pie mu a chese omuni na sami ameka say de omaso ahye mi gidi se sami omo ye ekwan omba faso a chese omo beji omo hu bia ene omo nam sa akwan no so but honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa say emfa because omo information omo begada every omo source no nye information ketwa na we no chese National Cathedral no uni Akroma wo ho asem chese ohun bom mu bia ye ready because omo source de no kure nko a ntro a enye omo source but no kure in free omo source ba oka safa ejapa deal no ho se 12 million bi o sa bo 6 million bi so ho asem o chese mo a wudin ebi peace scandals nim na ane munye ready pa mo fam sangu muti because omo de mo be famra kwan so ebuziafo kam hu ni enti inchichi mo honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa e de bae na e ba de obi aso ye de beto amoso.
This 5-member committee that's announced and appointed by President-elect John Dramani Mahama for the preparatory works of the Operation Recover or Loot. Ablakwa, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight.
Good evening, Alfred. Thank you for having me.
And I think congratulations to you and your team is in order.
Thank you very much.
Well, but you heard Mary Atta there, Executive Director of Ghana Integrity Initiative, raising a number of issues. First, that what are the terms of reference for you, the committee? It should be clearly spelled out, and also the standard operating procedure, so that they get to disabuse the minds of persons who are thinking that this could be a parallel structure running alongside state institutions established to fight corruption. Mr. Ablakwa.
Well, thank you very much. Let me say good evening to Madam Mary. We cherish the work that people like have done in the fight against corruption, and good evening to all the distinguished viewers of TV3. It is important to stress that our mandate has been clarified by the President-elect's statement, which he caused the Honorable Felix Kwasi-Ofosu to issue this morning. We have a very limited and clear mandate, which is to gather evidence. Our role is more of an evidence-gathering, fact-finding ordination role, and that's where it ends. We are not prosecutors, we are not judges, we are not going to pronounce anybody guilty. Our work is to make sure that the evidence is gathered. We are to serve as a vehicle. Remember that over the last 8 years, it's been very difficult for whistleblowers to act. It's been difficult for anti-corruption crusaders to work. If you talk to some investigative journalists like Manasseh Azuri, they'll tell you about their harrowing experiences, how they were hounded out of the country. You know of the assassination of Ahmed Hussein Swale. You are in the media. You know how difficult it has been. So when I hear people say, oh, why didn't the president-elect just ask Ghanaians to go to existing institutions? These institutions have always been there, but because we didn't have a good climate, you had a president who became known as a clearing agent. People who were blowing the whistle rather came under attack, and those who were fighting corruption rather turned against them and fought them. The likes of Mr. Domlevo, all our OSPs, one has resigned, the other one has been lamenting. You remember his last press conference where he said he's become an Ankonam and all of that. You know, so the climate has not been good for the fight against corruption. And considering the fact that the incoming president made Operation Recover All Loot a major plank, which has been well accepted by the people. So he has a social contract with the people. He does not want to be seen betraying the people. So he's taking advantage of the transitional arrangement. Remember that it is a very legal arrangement where the Transition Act allows the president to set up these transitional committees and give them specific mandates. The mandate of this committee or this team will end when the government has been fully, inaugurated and an attorney general has been nominated, approved by parliament. Then we will hand over the evidence, and then they will go and carry out their prosecutions, enforce their sanctions when they have obtained, court judgments. So I've heard some people say that, oh, is this not a witch hunt? Are we not going to be like the Citizens Vetting Committee and all of that? I think that all of those fears, even though legitimate, are far-fetched. We are minded of the constitutional democratic dispensation. This is not a witch hunt. We are only gathering information. We are encouraging the general public to submit information that they have. Whistleblowers are encouraged. There's a new dispensation, a new climate. They will be protected. They will not be hounded out. They should submit the information they have. Remember that as members of the team, we have also done considerable work in various scandals that we have put out, which have engaged the country's attention, from National Cathedral to the many episodes on state capture, the lands belonging to parks and gardens, prisons, Ghana airports, DVLA, I can go on and on, the Smith hotels, the Labadi Beach Fund, and then the many, scandals we put out about monies lost, the SkyTrain matter, the Poalugo Dam, $12 million, Sputnik V, the Shonky Sheikhs who have duped us, Carrie Summers who is keeping us $6 million, the Japan, $12 million. There's so many of these money, $58 million to dig a hole. Nobody can deny the fact that this country has gone through a great deal of hemorrhage. So much money, billions of dollars have been lost in all kinds of schemes, whether state. And we have to listen to the Ghanaian people. The Ghanaian people want accountability. They want people to be held responsible. And you see, those who are saying that, the president elect should just have adopted the usual business as usual approach, and then wait for institutions some way somehow to pick it up. What that will have meant is that we are not going to see deterrence, and we will not make such conduct costly. So the new government coming into power will be tempted to also go along those lines. And that is how impunity will reign supreme and the corruption canker will continue. Mind you, this is not oral. It's not the only intervention that the president-elect is saying he's going to do. He's going to carry out far-reaching constitutional reforms. He's going to ensure that there's a code of conduct for public officials. He's also going to lead legislative effort to make sure that politically exposed persons and all political appointees do not purchase state assets. They are going to be prohibited from going near state assets so that we can deal with the canker of state capture once and for all. So this is only one in the whole basket of raft of anti-corruption measures that the president-elect is determined to pursue.
Right, and my colleague then is going to run through the other issues that you just mentioned in a bit. But you hear Mary Atta talk about the fact that President Akufo-Addo, had something, not as similar as oral, but something in the form of trying to gather information or gather evidence in the fight against corruption to, as it were, transmit to the state institutions fighting corruption. That's what they called the Citizens Vetting Committee, where we had this special audit committee set up. And, well, we didn't see anything substantial in terms of the impact out of these committees that were set up some 7 to 8 years ago. So how different is this going to be?
I recall, it's an important point that has been made. I recall the Ameri matter, for example. You remember that there was a committee set up. Eventually, we found out that committee members had even accepted a trip fully sponsored by Ameri, the company they were investigating. And immediately it was clear that they had become compromised. I recall the Cole and Associates audit. I recall the Cocoa Rose audit, which huge sums of monies were paid, and we never saw those audit reports. In Parliament, we have been asking for years. So you can just tell that the mindset at the time was different. Contrast and compare with the attitude of the current team. Our first meeting today, Team Ora decided that we are not going to take allowances, no per diems, no salaries, no fuel coupons. We are working gratis. So you can tell right from the outset that this is a different mindset. It's a different approach. Compare this approach to the earlier investigative bodies that allow themselves to be, compromised or sponsored by companies they were investigating. Ours is a totally different mindset. It's a totally different approach. Our boss, the president-elect, will not tolerate any attempt to receive any inducements from people who either bring evidence or against whom, adverse evidence has been brought. So I can assure you that ours is a totally new paradigm.
I see.
The stakes are very, very high, and the Ghanaian people will not forgive us if we let them down. So be rest assured that this new approach is totally different from what was rolled out by the President Akufo-Addo Bawumia administration in 2017.
I see, but so you're saying that the work of the committee comes to an end when the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, or the Attorney General for that matter, is appointed eventually. You submit your evidence to the said Attorney General, and then your work is done. That's it.
Yes, that is our understanding, that we have a very limited time frame to operate. So gather the evidence within this transitional period, during inauguration, as ministers are being nominated and vetted. Once the Attorney General is approved by the House and sworn in, by which time we are told by the President-elect that the evidence should all have been gathered. So we want to use this opportunity to call on the general public to expedite the information that they have. They will be protected as whistleblowers, and we'll make sure that our report is ready. We are going to present a comprehensive report as soon as the Attorney General takes office, and that will be the end of our mandate. So we are not prosecutors, we are not judges. So those who are saying that already some of us are prejudiced and we have some targets, we are probably driven by hate, we want to
there was a reference made to
people. That's all baseless, and there can be no justification for that.
Right. You know, you're saying that in your first meeting today, you've resolved not to take per diems, no salaries for the period that fuel coupons. You know, I've got some reactions. The last time we had something like this, the finance minister, the former finance minister, said that, as Ofori Atta said, he wasn't taking salaries. You know, a number of things that he was rather doing cost us so much more. So it's an experience we don't want to have. So if you decided not to take salaries and per diems, what else are you taking that we don't know?
Very, very interesting point you have made. Unlike Ofori Atta, who was running a ministry and who had a pension of withdrawing funds when he doesn't have parliamentary approval. I remember what he did with National Cathedral, withdrew over $58 million without parliamentary approval. You remember his last days in office before he left during that reshuffle, he authorized payment of $10 million in the presidential daughter's ambulance scandal. If I had intercepted that document, the entire $34.9 million will have been paid. And again, he didn't have parliamentary approval to authorize those withdrawals. In this case, we are not ministers. We cannot authorize any release of funds. We cannot award contracts. We are nowhere near in the National Treasury. Absolutely nowhere near. No letter from any of us can open any votes or any coffers. So please be rest assured that even if we had that proximity or that mandate, we will not engage in that kind of conduct. But in this case, we are just an evidence-gathering transitional team. We don't have any authority. We are not ministers. We don't control any ministry. We don't have authorization over the authorization to withdraw any funds. So
right.
There's nothing hidden. This is purely sacrificial. You know the pedigree of the people we are talking about, the respected Dom Level, DCOP Kofi Boachi, Martin Pebu, Raymond Atta, and my humble self. These are people who care greatly about their reputations, and be rest assured that there is no hidden cost to the taxpayer. Everything is gratis. We are doing this for God and country. Okay,
so there's a lot to talk about with other aspects. So I know we have a date on Saturday morning, so we can let our viewers and our listeners keep a date and also join us on that moment. Thank you very much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Alfred.
Okudzeto Ablakwa is the chairman of this 5-member committee to start the preparatory work and do the Operation Recover All Loot that's promised by President-elect John Dramani Mahama. This is just a preliminary conversation we're having about their terms of reference and all other issues that civil society organizations. And Mary, appreciate you. Thank you for joining us as well. Mary is the Executive Director of Ghana Integrity Initiative, local chapter of Transparency International. She's also going to be with us on Saturday morning on Key Points. So keep that in mind and make a date. But you heard some of Okudzeto Ablakwa talk about the Atta promises in this MDC manifesto that they are going to work with to fight corruption. Dennis, what are we saying?
And indeed, the oral is not the only thing that the NDC promised in their manifesto when it comes to fighting corruption and then ensuring good governance. When you look at page 136 of their manifesto, and I mean the 2024 manifesto, they make quite a number of promises, except that the launch of Operation Recover All Loot to investigate, prosecute, and recover proceeds of corruption stands tall. It is the foremost promise that they made in this particular document. It's interesting to know that upon the appointment of this particular committee, it has generated a lot of conversation on social media today, with people also making suggestions as to how it can get better. I followed conversation quite keenly on social media. I saw somebody recommend that there could be an online platform where people can, give information anonymously to this committee, and if it leads to a successful prosecution and recovery of the loot, those persons should be entitled to a portion of that. There are also others who suggest that, this is a policy that can actually run 24 hours. I mean, you know where this is coming from. And one that I found recently, I mean, this evening, was an allegation of some sort in a localized environment. It was within a constituency. And somebody makes the suggestion that Oral must have constituency offices to suggest that things are happening at the localized level that they also need attention. But also, beyond Oral, there's also the promise by the NDC to initiate legislation to prohibit politically exposed persons, political appointees, politically exposed persons, public officials from purchasing state assets. This has been a long battle for the states, where state officials, upon leaving office, they want to acquire state property. In some instances, they acquire them at peanuts, coming at a cost to the state. The NDC says that they will fight that in their manifesto. Item 3 on their manifesto, under this particular section, has to do